You get faced different stages of maturity. That's, or is it you move through it entirely?
There was a movie some years ago with Nicole Kidman and some kid who was like 10 and had fallen in love with her. And apparently she was her ex-husband who had died in a car crash. And he knew everything about her life. When she was with her husband, what they did, some of her secrets that she had mentioned to her husband. So in some ways he was extremely mature, but he was not a good candidate for companionship. He was, after all, only 10 or 12. So yes, there are some parts of you can be very mature, but because of the absence of life experiences, you can't really do much with them. Oftentimes it backfires. Imagine if you're 15 and first, whatever the reasons may be, what people call having an old soul, I don't know if that's true or not, but you happen to be a bit more heavy in thinking and feeling, a bit more sensitive, a bit more open to the forces out there, and you sit, you reflect, and then you hang out with your buddies who are 15, your own age, and you realize you have nothing in common with them. If you were to hang out with 20-year-olds, they wouldn't take you seriously, and yet you can't hang out with your own age group because they're just idiots. And so oftentimes you kind of get depressed because you're beyond your age. It's good to have well, let me just perhaps put it this way, which is easier, because I don't want to think too much today. I think if there is anything you want to do in life, there is a season for it. If you want to get married, there are pros and cons. It's good to get married when you're 20 because you like grass. Marriage creates a lot of tornadoes. If you're 40 and get married, you're like this thick trunk, and if the wind blows a little too hard, you just break, which means your marriage just dissolves, If on the other hand you're 20, you have more flexibility, hopefully, and you're able to compromise and work with your companion. If you want to go to school, if you're 20, you have a lot of empty space in your brain. And your life is not as full as, say, a 40 or a 50-year-old. And so it doesn't mean you have the capacity to listen well, understand well, apply well. It just means that you can just kind of just go through the grind, and then you'll be done in like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If you start going to school at the age of, say, 40, well, there are, I suppose, different reasons you want to go to school. Maybe financially you're set off, you're well off, and you're just going because you're just ready to learn. For some strange reason, you have the ability to listen, and you have no financial issues. You're just going there not to up your salary, not because you're just hungry for certain things, and it's for you. It's not for a degree. It's kind of like the student we have in the Tuesday, Thursday called Alex. He doesn't need money, he doesn't need degrees, he just comes there to listen, If on the other hand, you review your life and you don't really have, say your physical life is not in order and you want to kind of give it a certain direction. At the age of 40, 45, you have 40 years of history and most of it is unresolved. And you want to figure things out, and your plate is full. You have a job, you have to make money, you have to pay rent, you probably maybe have a companion or you don't, and being alone is not fun. So your mental space and capacity doesn't allow you to be as focused. There are too many things going on. So You know, it's kind of like the idea of death. It's really sad when you hear a 12-year-old, you know, having cancer and dying, or a 25-year-old, because they have this future ahead of them, and they have all these hopes and fantasies. You know, but when you happen to be 70, 80, 90, well, it's a good time to die. I mean, there isn't really, good morning, there isn't really much out there for you to do. I mean, you could say, pass along your wisdom to A, B, C, D, but for the most part, you know, you're a done deal. Now, it doesn't mean that just because you're 40 and you're going to go back to school, it's a hopeless, you know, journey. It's not. It's all sorts of things can happen. And all the things I'm saying really are coming from a very limited set of perspectives. No one knows anybody's future. But if you have a 1958 Pinto and you want to go to Los Angeles, there's a good chance it's going to break down. There's a good chance that you can't go more than 20 miles an hour, you know, which means that if you had a Tesla or a Toyota 2023, the journey will take you like 5 or 6 hours. Pinto, it's going to take you about a couple of days. You know, so it's good to be a realist at times, so you can see what you have on your plate, and that'll help you kind of manage, you know, manage your hopes well, so you don't get disappointed, and all those things. Forgive me, I forgot your question. So, anyone else before we go home? Kovian, hello? Yeah.
This, I don't know how to word this, but it's about how people use others for their type of confidence. I don't know how to ask the question.
I'm sorry?
It's about how people like use others for how they view themselves.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to like use like instead of trying to like figure out for themselves who they are, they let other people use their words and manipulate them into thinking this.
Okay. That's okay. Look. Do you have an easy time being yourself? Figuring out who you are, being authentic, creative? Forgive me for making it this way. And I mean no disrespect or offense. You're 18. You're a kid. You just walked into life. If you don't have something out there that attracts you, that inspires you to mimic them, copy them, plagiarize who and what they are. You know, it's like any other craft. You can't just, without any practice, any knowledge, go out there and play piano. You know, first you hear the piano, then you have a teacher. That teacher makes you play the way he or she plays. And once you become proficient, then if you have any talents about you, then you can go out there and be who you are, whatever that may mean. You know, it's like anything else. You didn't come out and start writing. First, you learn the alphabets. Who created the alphabets? The Sumerians, Egyptians, you know? And it passes along, and now we have the English alphabets. Well, you mimic them, memorize them for a while, then you put them together, and they become words. And the words become sentences, it becomes paragraphs, and it's all copy and paste. People tell you what to do, and you do them. And then you don't write at the age of 10 and then read your writing. I mean, unless you just, you know, you have some issues and your therapist tells you keep a journal, you know. So you read books that other people have written. And then you read the dialogues of Plato, for example. I mean, I had so many students who have taken my classes and then they get a job. And I go on there and watch the way they teach. You know, and they scream the way I used to. They, you know, throw out silly jokes, you know, and I understand why they do it. And I just say, you know, that's not bad. Maybe in 20 years they can kind of just use their own voice, their own thoughts, their own emotions. But for the time being, as long as you're a novice, you're an apprentice, you're a student. And all you do is just be a good student by mimicking. And once you become proficient, then if you have any talent, just go out there and do the stuff in your own way. But at the age of 18, doing this all by yourself, and remember, we've been around, civilization is about 5,000 years old. Agriculture and all that. You have 5,000 years of stories that are out there to help you. Look, you go to Safeway to buy ingredients to make food. You go to Ross to buy clothes. You go to Home Depot to buy stuff. Learning any other craft is the same way. There is a shop for it. You want wisdom? Well, there's a shop for that. You want to know who you are? There's a shop for that. Okay? Get to know the tools really, really well. And then if you want to build your own house by your own blood and sweat, you're welcome to it. But this idea that really is predominantly in the West, specifically America, is just go out there and just make your life work for you the way you want it. You're just a kid. You don't have any money, so you borrow money from your parents. You don't have any knowledge. Borrow knowledge from Plato. There is nothing wrong with it. There will come a time where you say, Dad, I don't need your money anymore. I can make my own money. And there will come a time where you look at Plato and say, I'm not going to read your books anymore, man. I can write my own books now. I think well. I feel well. I observe well. That's how you do it. Noor.
Hey, Amir, good morning.
Good morning, Ahmed.
How are you
Ahmed,
doing?
how are you doing?
Well, you?
I'm okay. You guys came in together.
No.
Yeah. You came in together.
No, it was only once.
No. You came in together.
Right?
Well, the end of the semester is soon approaching. It's a good time to be silly a little. Any other questions or comments we can play with? Go ahead, Wolf. Jalua? Wolf? Jalua? Wolf?
One of the videos that we're watching right now, the fourth assignment about the read. I don't know what it's called, but it talks about how it sounds like at some point, like, it kind of compares people to these reeds, it's like a flute and instrument. So I guess it also talks about sort of like the separation that happens and people feel like an emptiness or like they need a feeling of belonging to something. It's not so much the emptiness, but it's like the character. But I guess at what point does that separation happen? Where you begin to feel like that, the need or the emptiness, I guess.
Okay. Have I ever told you the story of Joseph in the Old Testament in this class? But I'm not going to use the Old Testament story. I'm going to use the story that comes from the Quran. Alexis, good morning. Should I tell it to you or should we just go home?
No.
Ahmed, are you sure?
Yeah. I want to hear.
You want to hear the story? No,
I don't know.
I don't believe you. There is a father somewhere in the Middle East. His name happens to be Jacob. And in Persian Arabic, we call him Ya'qub. Allahu Akbar. Ya'qub has, or Jacob has, a few sons. 10, 15, 16, 17. 11 sons. For some strange reason, he really, really adores this particular son of his, whose name is Yusuf or Joseph. Joseph, yeah. Parents don't love their children equally. For those of us in this class who are parents, we know that. You always love your first child just a bit more because you've had alone time with them for a year or 2 or 3 or 4. And then the second one comes about and then, you still love them, but just not as much. I don't know why Jacob loves Joseph so much more than all of his other kids. And that's something you should consider, that love by itself creates a great amount of injustice, that for some strange reason you give your attention more to some people and you're focused on them a bit more. Good morning. There is also something very strange about this particular relationship between the father and the son, which is Jacob just does not want to be parted, does not want to be separated, not even for a moment, from his son Joseph. He wants Joseph to be there all the time. And that's another element that love creates. You always want to be around the person or the thing that you're attracted to intensely, which we call love. Now, whenever you love someone or something a bit too much, unless you live in a cave, you're fine. But if you live in a social environment where there are other people in your community, love also has a sibling. It's called jealousy. Other people, or as Jacob had it, his other sons, look at the relationship between the father and the son, and they become very, very, very jealous. They want the same attention that their father has given to Joseph all of these years. They want some of that attention. They want some of that care, some of that passion. But Joseph is unable, or Jacob is unable to give the same attention, the same love to the other sons. Now, for those of you in this class who have ever fallen in love and you want to distribute this thing called love equally amongst your people, you can't do that. Love makes you monogamous. And in as much as you would want to try and will yourself to be a person of equality and justice, it's just never going to happen. Now, whenever someone becomes jealous or a group of people become jealous, and remember, you cannot be jealous without awareness. The moment you become aware that someone is giving somebody else more attention than they're giving you, this awareness brings about jealousy. And if there isn't much you can do about it, jealousy will grow into hatred, envy, resentment. So it's always good to be able to pretend well. So whoever is in your orbit, in your circle, doesn't become aware that you're focused on someone or something else. Okay, so you don't want to bring to the surface this thing that lives inside all of us, which is jealousy, that could lead to envy and resentment and anger and hatred and revenge. Now, the problem with love, as Rumi would say, for those of you who may not know the story of Moses and his encounter with Yahweh or Allah or God or truth, the moment Moses climbs this mountain and experiences Yahweh, the mountain begins to shatter or dance. And it's only because of the love that lives inside Moses. And the point that Rumi wants to make is the following. When you fall in love, you can't hide the expressions. You can't repress this emotion. It's going to come out. It's going to express itself in one way or another. And despite your best effort to repress this emotion, to make sure it's invisible, to hide it from the eyes of other people so that they don't feel inferior, they don't feel jealous, they don't feel angry. The truth is, at some point, it's going to come out. You're going to either act indifferent towards the other people in your life. You're going to write poems, and they may assume that the poem that you've written is for them. But, Bodhi! Hello! How are you? Barikallah, Baba. Oh, Abi, I'm sorry. How are you? I mean, when you bring Bodhi, you become just... Now, so remember, for those of you in this class who may ever fall in love with anything and yet you have commitments and responsibilities to other things, you're going to find yourself in a really, really difficult situation. You know, you can't serve two masters, and it's absolutely true. It's correct, you can't. But should you be in the presence of those to whom you feel somewhat indifferent or somewhat casual, try to be as political as possible by making them feel as if they are relevant when in fact they are not. Okay. Now, Jacob has tried to hide his feelings from his children, the feelings he has for his son, Joseph, but it's not possible. And these kids become very, very, very jealous to the point of anger and hatred. So they go to their father one day and say, is it okay if we go hiking with our young brother Joseph? And Jacob says, no. I want no harm to come to him. Now, that's the thing you also need to understand about this thing we call love. It becomes sacred. You have found your paradise down here on earth. There is no other place you need to go. The person that you have fallen in love with, they become your church. They are what we call a totem. They are what we call Jesus. Only through him you can get to God. Once you fall in love, you have found your purpose, you have found your meaning, you have found your completion. And there is nothing else you need to do. There is no other place you need to go. And that is your sanctuary. And the moments you're not, or any moments where you're not near that particular sanctuary, you feel homeless and you feel helpless. And you feel alone and you feel isolated. And now remember, when there is no love inside you and I, we are nothing but a bundle of advertisements on the inside. You can do whatever, wherever, it doesn't really matter. But the moment you fall in love, it's like you put all of your eggs in one single basket. So that particular person or totem becomes everything that you are. If I ask you who you are, you say, I am Layli. I am my beloved. If I ask you where you're going, whatever my companion wants. There is this great story that comes from the Sufi tradition. It's, I forget if it's Bayazid Bastami or Shibli. Someone knocks on his door and Shibli asks, who is it? And the guy says, it's me, Ahmed, Ahmed. And Shibli says, there is no Ahmed here. Get lost. And the guy says, man, you know, Shibli is my best friend. I tell him who I am and he says, he's not there. How is that possible? There must be a mystery to his response. So he goes somewhere in the desert and then he figures it out. And he comes back, knocks on the door, and Shibli once again asks, who is it? And the guy says, it's you. And now Shibli opens the door and says, welcome. And that's the student-teacher relationship, really. You can't have your own will, you can't have your own name, you can't have your own meaning and your own purpose. Everything about you must be everything about the teacher. And that's what Jacob feels about his son Joseph. So when the sons come to him and say, we want to go to Yosemite and we want Joseph with us, Jacob says, no. Without Joseph, I am nothing. Without Joseph, I'm homeless, I'm helpless, I'm incompetent, all that stuff. And the kids cry and cry and cry. And Jacob at some point says, fine, you guys can take my son who I love with you. One condition, no harm must come to him. So for those of you in this class who ever fall in love and you sacrifice a whole host of things for your lover, there is a reason. Once you fall in love, there is only one task that is on your plate: to do whatever you can to satisfy your beloved. It doesn't matter what you have to sacrifice, you will do it. You will walk away from a whole host of things. Now, true that maybe 10 years after it passes, you look back and you'll regret everything you have done. But that's the trick of life and the trick of the mind and all that stuff. But while you're there, you're okay with being a sacrificial lamb, okay? Now, the brothers take Joseph not because they like Joseph. And this is something you need to understand about jealousy and anger. When you're jealous of someone or something, I mean, you're angry at someone or something, when you spend time with them, you don't spend time with them because you like them. You somehow want to sabotage the relationship. And that's what the brothers want to do. So they take Joseph somewhere, and the plan is to kill him. Jealousy and murder are siblings. And by murder, I don't mean physically like destroying someone, removing someone's talent, belittling them, going on Facebook and saying nasty things about them. That's what jealousy does. Now, the brothers, of course, can't bring themselves to completely destroy their younger brother's life. So what they do is they remove his t-shirt and dump him in a well. And it's deep and it's dark. Hey, buddy. And they find a goat or a lamb or a cow or a dog somewhere. They cut the dog's head, spill the blood on the t-shirt, and they take the t-shirt back to the father, Jacob, and they say to him, we went hiking, Yosemite, El Capitan. The wolves came, they attacked us. I mean, all of us are scratched, all of us are bloodied, but Joseph died. You do have a house, you do have all sorts of things, but the thing that gives your life meaning and purpose is love. Jacob has lost the very foundation, the very core of who and what he is, his life. And what happens when you suffer a loss? You scream, you cry, you grieve. And in grief, you're always going to be alone. And in grief, you're always going to become blind. Because if the love goes away, and I'm not talking about the love that exists in space and space and time ultimately oxidizes the relationship. But the person you once loved now suffocates you, and you tell him, can you just go away for a walk? Let me have some time to myself. Okay. Now Joseph or Jacob cries and cries and cries and cries and cries until he becomes blind. When you become blind, you can't see. And it's symbolic. There are lots of people out there, but you're just not interested. There are lots of things out there that can bring, hopefully, meaning to your life, drag you out of isolation, loneliness, and despair, but nothing out there has the power to do any of it. Now, you can either weep from the inside, or you can weep from the inside and express it outwardly by the tears that you cry. Now, Jacob becomes blind. He can no longer see anything. So for those of you in this class who ever fall in love and all of a sudden come to realize that your life is slowly becoming irrelevant and without meaning and without purpose, and you feel isolated and alone, and no one can reach you, that's what love does. The entire world becomes irrelevant. The only thing that matters is you want to be next to your companion, the person that you love. In this case, Jacob wants to be near Joseph, but he's been told that Joseph is dead. What happens when you have lost the very anchor foundation to your life? Everything turns upside down. So remember, just in case you fall in love and you become anxious, confused, angry, and your life is falling apart, tough luck. That's what it does. No one has power over love. Okay?